Hey everyone, it's Irene here. I wanted to pop on to do a hopefully quick live about a topic that we are getting a lot of questions around. My team specifically, and myself, around certification. So if you've been following me for a while, you know that I have been doing some research and development with some of my Smart Body, Smart Mind alumni, just testing the waters of what it might look like to do a formal professional practitioner training. And it's going really well. So I'll say that number one, it's going really well. And what is very clear to me as I go through the second cohort with my Smart Body, Smart Mind alumni is how important it is for the person to be doing their own nervous system, somatic, physical body work. So when I got into somatic experiencing, which is one of the three things, well, it's really one of the four things I'm trained in, if I don't count my science degrees, I was a little bit, I had a step above because I had already done 10 years of fitness training, nutrition training, and 4 years of Feldenkrais training. So I was already a somatic practitioner with a very sophisticated form of neuroplasticity work. And so that gave me an advantage when I was in my somatic experiencing training because I already knew how to track my body and be in my skeleton. I was aware of my movement, and I was trained deeply in this stuff. Not everybody has that training. So one of the, I would say, hallmarks of the future when I am training people to be practitioners is it will be essential that A, you have gone through the Smart Body, Smart Mind curriculum, which is designed for the public, and have gone through it in a way that you understand the material, you can embody the material. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect, because I certainly am not. But you have to be really in it and growing your regulation and your capacity. What I have seen in a lot of the trauma trainings, not the ones that I have been in and hearing about others, is there is not enough preparation and there's not enough prerequisite before someone starts to learn this stuff. And the problem with this is if you are not aware of your unhealed stuff and you're not aware of how to track that when it comes up, you could be sitting in a lecture, you could be working with someone in a practice session, and you might be completely dissociated or completely in freeze or completely in overwhelm, and you don't even know it because you've paid your money to be in that class and you're going to override what the system needs to do as it gets triggered by the material. I hope this is making sense. So what I'm saying here is one needs to be, at minimum, have done at least, I'm going to say 3 years. 3 years of personal, deep dive, somatic healing work before you even want to consider getting into a training where you are learning how to be the person to help others. So that's very important for me. And the reason why it's also important is when you have that base foundation, you have that regulation, learning this stuff is actually quite simple because A, your brain is more turned on because you're not fighting survival stress. So you're actually learning and you're actually retaining things. And when you're more regulated and more in your body, you can attune to and know what to do with said person or group way easier. But if you're working with someone, or if you're working with a group of people and you're having to kind of parse through your own muck and yuck and junk and all the things, you're not going to be a clear antenna for the people that you're with. Does this mean that you have to be 100% perfectly regulated to do work with people? Of course not. I was doing really good work years ago, even though I was still living in what we would call functional freeze. However, I was also burning out because I was using my own personal energy to do work with people because I didn't understand the difference. I didn't understand how to have me be kind of out of the equation and just be the catalyst for that person. So to come back to the original reason I wanted to pop on, again, a lot of people are asking about certification. When am I going to do this? In many ways, I already am, because you need to start with the basics. And I know you want to get the certificate that says you're trauma trained and you can do this, but trust me when I say, if you do not get your own house in order first, a disaster could take place, whether with the people that you're working with, or your system will crack. It will not have the foundations that it needs to do this work. This work is intense. It can be intense, but it also should be such that you do it and it doesn't affect you in a way that throws you off for days and weeks. So for the two lines that I'm seeing, there's people who already are in a scope of practice. Maybe you're a massage, you're a therapist, you're a coach, you're an energy healer, you're a psychic, you're a leader of some sort, and you just want to have, people would say, I want to be trauma informed. Being trauma informed means being regulated in your own body. It is not enough to just read a book about the polyvagal theory, or read one of Peter Levine's books or Gabor Mate's books, or go to a weekend workshop or do a certificate that's just a few weekends and you're trauma trained or you're trauma informed. You might have some knowledge, but it has to be lived through your body. And that's where Smart Body, Smart Mind, which is my 12-week online course, or begin with the 21-day nervous system tune-up, smaller course that can lead into that. That is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to start, because you're doing the work for yourself and you're learning the theory at a very, very deep level. Everything that I've learned in my trainings that stuff is in those programs. So that's for the person who just wants to have some solid understanding of the nervous system, what trauma is. And like I said, when you have this in your body and you're in, say, your scope of practice, it becomes effortless to just blend in some of these concepts, blend in questions that are a little bit different that you might not have considered without having I prefer nervous system lens than trauma lens, nervous system lens, physiological lens. There are so many people within the Smart Body, Smart Mind membership whom have completely transformed how they work in their existing scope of practice just through learning about this for themselves. It is almost impossible to not apply this stuff when you're working with others. We even have students who work in business, in corporate worlds, who run brick and mortar businesses, and they've said the way they deal and handle and are with their employees is completely different because they're seeing them through a nervous system lens. And so it just makes human relations better. For those who want to do this work and be practitioners, I'll pose the question, why do you want to do the work? Is it because it helped you? In my opinion, that's not enough of a reason. There really needs to be a strong calling and a strong, this is what I want to do because this is my career. This is the work I'm meant to do. So it might be that, yes, that is, when I say that, you say, yes, I want to do this work. But don't think that just because this work helped you, that means you have to do this work. I'm starting to see that in many circles where it transformed me so much, therefore I must do it. That's not necessarily true. So if you fall into the boat of, yep, I definitely want to do this work, I'm meant to be a practitioner, it goes back to the same thing. You've got to start on working with your own system and spending the time to work on your own system. And it'll just save you time in the end. You really need to know how to be in your own body and be your own healer first. You have to walk the talk before you even start to consider learning how to work with other people. So that is what I say in that realm. My goal is to create a full-fledged training. I don't really like the word certification. We'll use that word, I'm sure, but there's a lot of certificates out there in this world of somatic trauma healing that are not really producing, from what I've seen, solid practitioners. So you still have to start with the basics, just like all medical doctors have to start with 4 years in biology, and then they have to do pre-med, and then they have to do the MCAT, and then they do the first 4 years, and then they have to take their exams, and then they have to do residency. And then if they pass residency, maybe then they become an actual physical doctor. There's no equivalent to that yet in the trauma healing worlds, and that's my intention, is to create that. So it means that you're not going to get trained in a year. I didn't get trained in a year. It took me 15 plus years. I don't think it needs to take 15 plus years, but think about a physician. They're not practicing medicine within 4 years. It takes time. So that's the other thing for those of you that say, yeah, I want to work with trauma. I want to be a practitioner. I need you to realize the commitment that it takes to do that. You have to study, you have to read, you have to practice, you have to change your entire life. You cannot stay with toxic partners. You cannot stay in your toxic behaviors and habits. You have to really walk the talk, or else it will cause friction when you start to learn. It will be really hard to move forward in this work if your whole entire life doesn't shift in response to this calling to do this work as a practitioner. So that's my rant around answering this question of, are you doing certifications, Irene? How do I start? How do I become trauma informed? How do I become trauma trained? There's your answer. It takes time. It is a real profession. Even though it's not designated, take it from me and take it from some of the other colleagues that I have who work with me within my team. None of the people that are on my team got trained in 3 months or in a year or 2 years or even only 4 years to do the work that they do. It has been, for many of them, if I think about them, decades. So if that scares you, then that might mean that this isn't the work you're supposed to do. But if it excites you and you're like, that's for me, then really feel that, really know that. Never did I say to myself, holy cow, this is just too much. I can't keep going. Never. It was never a question. So I will pose that to you as well. You have to really feel in your bones, in your cells, in your system, in your soul, that this is what I want to do. And then listen to that. So thank you, everyone, for being here and listening. And we will talk to you later. Of course, if you have any further questions, the best place to ask is via our email. So just support@irenelyon.com. We're going to most likely run Smart Body, Smart Mind again soon. But if you haven't started any of my stuff, you can begin with the 21-day nervous system tune-up now and get started. And you won't know if this work is for you if you don't start. It's not enough to just poke around and go, oh yeah, I think I want to learn about trauma and the nervous system. You have to get into the work. You won't know until you're actually doing it, and you actually might not realize how much work needs to be done on yourself until you start doing the work. So you got to go that one step one step further to dip in and see, is this what I want to pursue as my career, as my continuing education? So that's all I have today. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.